Nobody has more respect for women than I do. Nobody.
Hillary Clinton wants to abolish it, believe me. She wants to abolish our Second Amendment.
I think they didn't deny it. I don't think anybody denied it.
Other presidents did not call, did write letters, and some presidents didn't do anything.
Many people have come out and said I'm right.
You really do have to ask yourself, where does it stop?
Hello and welcome to Fallacious Trump, the podcast where we use the insane ramblings of a corrumpent throttlebottom to explain logical fallacies. I'm your host, Jim.
And I'm your other host, Mark. A logical fallacy is an error in reasoning that results in bad or invalid arguments. And the logical fallacy we're looking at this week is the magical thinking fallacy. But just a minute, before we go, a corrumpent throttlebottom.
Yeah.
That's
so
quite something.
So a throttlebottom
is
a largely harmless but bumbling and incompetent public servant, public figure, person in power.
Right.
I have seen conflicting reports of whether it already existed or whether it was from the 30s political satire comedy Of Thee I Sing. It's called George S. Kaufman musical, in which one of the characters was Vice President Alexander Throttlebottom.
Right. Yeah. It sounds like someone trying to suppress an imminent fart, really.
Yes, yeah. But throttlebottoms are usually harmless. So a corrumpent one.
Right.
Corrumpent is a 14th century word that means a politician, basically, who breaks the laws that they are in power to put in place.
Nice. And yes, because it contains corrupt and a homophone for Trump.
Well, yeah,
all in there.
Rumpere is Latin for break.
Ah, right. Yeah.
And so it's about breaking the laws that you
in a corrupt fashion. Ah, there you go. Cool. Couldn't be more apt, could it?
There you go.
Yeah. So what we're talking about? Oh, yeah, magical thinking fallacy.
Magical thinking fallacy,
yeah.
After that little diversion into lexicology.
Yeah.
Yes, magical thinking is about using something magical and suggesting it has a causal relationship to something happening in the real world, or in kind of something we can all point to and say, yes, that's a real thing.
Right.
But arguing that is based on, or is the result of, or could be prevented by something which not everyone agrees is a real thing. Because it's bullshit.
Because there's lots of people have been talking recently with the leadership contest running over here for the new Prime Minister, talking about magical thinking in a kind of different context, different way. So it's just like the magic money tree was accused when Labour would say, we would pay for it by this, that and the other, and that was called the magic money tree because it was just magical thinking, like they were going to come up with money out of nowhere. And strangely enough, all the people that are running for the leadership are all doing the same. They come out with this sort of magic reasoning where money would just appear to be able to fund tax cuts left, right,
so
center.
That's kind of closer to a different fallacy, which we'll probably talk about another time, called wishful thinking.
Wishful
thinking rather than magical thinking. But this one is about linking ethereal, spiritual, godly, magical, or kind of universal forces or whatever, to things happening in the real world.
It also put me in mind of the which I think we might have talked about before, the chocolate biscuit fallacy, which I heard in a fictionalized. So there's a series on Radio 4 over here, which is a short thing where they turn the facts of the day or the week into a fictionalized thing, and one of them, and it was written by a journalist who was talking about the causal connection that people come up with as a reason for not getting vaccinated, and the doctor in it was talking about it, saying, well, the problem that you're suffering from, this particular denier, is known in the medical profession as the chocolate biscuit fallacy, because if we gave everyone in the country a chocolate biscuit, and after which people would lose their teeth or die or have a miscarriage or go deaf or get cancer, it just happens afterwards. It's not because of. It's a
corruption of post hoc ergo propter.
Yes, it's a bad causal connection. Yeah, they're saying because I've had the chocolate biscuit, I've now got. And of course,
Yeah,
that's
so
nonsense.
with post hoc ergo propter hoc, the thing that sets that apart from this one slightly is that both of those things happen.
Right. Okay.
and they happen in an order.
Yeah.
And so there's an assumption that the first thing causes the second, or there's some.
Yeah.
In this one,
the
first thing, the causal thing, arguably at least, never happened at all anyway.
Right. Yes. Okay.
Or that two things happen, but they're linked through a magical method.
Right.
So in our first example, this is Trump on Election Day 2016, calling in to Fox and Friends.
Tell me about this day for Donald Trump.
Well, it's very exciting. It's, I've spoken to you folks for a lot during our very successful primaries, oftentimes every single one. I was speaking to you in the morning, and so I'm a little bit superstitious. So when you said, please call, I said, I'll call. But I won many primaries speaking to you first thing in the morning, so I'm going to keep that string going.
So Trump reckons that because he called Fox and Friends in the morning on the days of various primaries that he then was triumphant in, the most sensible thing to do, and the thing that will actually have some real-world effect, is speaking to them first thing in the morning on Election Day.
Right. So the fact that he says he's a bit superstitious is actually kind of that's associated with that sort of magic. It's a bit like soccer players always putting the same sock on first because that means they will win.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
And he is a bit superstitious, as it turns out. There's one of the books written about him by, I think, Corey Lewandowski and David Bossy, talked about him doing things like throwing salt over his shoulder at mealtimes and talking about bad juju and things like that.
Right. Yeah.
So, it turns out there's a few things that he is quite superstitious about and kind of not wanting to mess things up, like in our second clip where he is this is during the run-up to the midterms in 2018.
I think we're doing really well. I'm looking at the Senate votes, and races that we were not even going to contest, we're now winning. If you look at North Dakota, if you look at, I could name 4 or 5 of them, but I want to jinx myself by doing it. But many of the Senate races that we didn't think we were even going to be contesting to a large extent, we are now leading.
So realistically, he doesn't mention the 4 or 5 because he just can't think of the names of 4 or 5 other states.
Yeah.
But he blames it on not wanting to jinx it by talking about the places where the Republicans are actually doing really well. This is before the voting has started, so this is kind of early polling, I guess, he was basing it on.
Yeah.
But, it's the idea that you can jinx something, again, it's not, it's widely held. This kind of thing is believed by people, including lots of people who consider themselves probably to be quite logical thinkers. Yeah. There's often still things like, you might knock on wood or something like that, just as a bit of a kind of hangover from earlier beliefs or superstitions. Yeah. But if you base anything on it or use it in arguments or assume that it will actually have an effect, it's probably not a logical position to take.
Yeah. Right there, we used to have there was a guy at school who would have to go out the same door that he came in, even in a kind of, in like the school hall, which had probably 8 doors. He said, well, especially on exam day, he would say, well, I've got to go out through that same door, otherwise that would affect the result of my exam. And he's going, well, if you're spending more energy doing that than, say, revising the subject, then it may well have an effect, but probably not the one you want.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely used to do stuff kind of like that. Or when I used to do 10-pin bowling, I would, if I was not playing particularly well one game, I would untuck my shirt or tuck my shirt in, depending on which way it had started. Right. And in some kind of weird belief that would have some effect on how I was playing. And the thing about sports,
every time I did it, I got a strike.
Yeah, well, no, it did. It often didn't work at all, but it worked. But there were enough times when I was doing it that the next shot or one of the next few shots happened to, did better or something like that, and so that reinforces it, and you get that confirmation bias going on.
Yeah.
And the other thing about sports is, and this is why it seems like sports people tend to be more kind of superstitious, and there's certainly a lot of examples that people can point to, is that a part of your ability to do well in sports is your mindset.
Yeah.
And so if you are confident and believe that you can do it, and you're going in with a particular kind of focus and level of force or whatever, it actually does make a difference because of the psychology of how you feel about it. Not because, the thing you didn't make the difference, or the fact you're wearing your lucky underpants or whatever.
Yeah.
But the effect it has on your brain, and then the effect your brain has on how well you do sport.
Yeah.
There is a causal thing there.
I was watching Rafa Nadal at Wimbledon. Every time he was going to serve, he would touch each of his ears and then either side of his nose, and then wipe his brow with both wristbands, and he'd do that every time. And he'd touch the opposite ear with the opposite hand, so he'd kind of go, you could almost. Somebody ought to cut it to a drum beat, because it would just go, dum, dum, and then he'd serve. It's so ingrained in what he does. It's part of his routine that if he doesn't know he's doing it, but if he didn't do it, and I suspect he would not be able to serve, or
he'd feel weird. It would put him off somehow.
Otherwise, it'll all go to pot. Yeah.
So there is at least an argument for some slight causal relationship between sports people doing routines or wearing a particular thing and it changing their performance, at least in a small way, possibly. Obviously that isn't the case when you've got just Trump talking on TV about how various Senate races are going to go in the midterms, and whether that will then mean he wins, his team, his party wins or loses. So there's no relationship there. And also, there's no relationship when he sent a tweet in 2012. This is 15th of October 2012. He said, Derek Jeter had a great career until 3 days ago when he sold his apartment at Trump World Tower. I told him not to sell. Karma. Now, 3 days before that, Derek Jeter broke his ankle in a baseball game. It probably wasn't because he sold his apartment at Trump World Tower. Right. I can't think of a plausible causal relationship between those two things.
Selling some real estate and breaking it.
He just landed badly.
Yeah. He didn't sell it because it was up a big flight of stairs that he always tripped down.
Lifts.
Exactly, yeah.
And now is the time, I think, for Mark's British politics corner.
The usual thing in British politics, it's difficult to pin down anyone definitely saying, because this magical thing, magically then that. Well, apart from Nadine Dorries, who basically always says, because Remainers, then anything and everything. But I think there really are many examples of magical thinking in this vein to choose from in current British politics. Boris Johnson and his staunchest supporters seem to subscribe to the notion that if they almost superstitiously simply repeat that they did nothing wrong, can't remember doing anything wrong, lie about saying they couldn't remember, or tell us we have to wait to see what the report by someone looking into whether they've done something wrong says, then that thing will go away. There's kind of a culture of just saying these magical things, and then that will make the thing that was causing them trouble disappear. And practically speaking, it seems to work. Or the other thing they do is they simply have to say that they are doing something, or even sometime later, and that sometime later time period doesn't actually have to include them actually doing the thing that they're saying they're doing. And after that time period, they can then say that they have done something, and then this means they don't have to have actually done anything to address the things they say are important, or the things that actually are important to voters, like cost of living or fuel prices or transport chaos or Brexit or the heat or food poverty. So for the very last time of answering any and every question from Keir Starmer at Prime Minister's Questions this week, just as he has done for at least a year or two, Boris invokes the same kind of occult mantra of superstitious touchstones, and he mentions the vaccination program. So these are the things that he actually had not done anything about. They've just talked about that they've done something, and it always includes the vaccination program, more people in employment, and the fastest economic growth.
Why does the Prime Minister think that those vying to replace him decided to pull out of the Sky debate last night?
Today happens to be just about the anniversary of the exit from lockdown last year. It was because we were able to take that decision, Mr. Speaker, supported by every single one of those Conservative candidates, that we had the fastest economic growth in the G7. We're now able to help families up and down the country. We had growth in May of 0.5%. We have more people in paid employment than at any time in the history of this country. If we'd listened to him, it wouldn't have been possible, Mr. Speaker.
But I do note that the Prime Minister didn't agree with his former Chancellor. So what about his Foreign Secretary? She said, if Rishi has got this great plan for growth, why haven't we seen it in the last 2.5 years at the Treasury?
What you saw in the last 2.5 years was because of the pandemic, the biggest fall in output for 300 years, which this government dealt with and coped with magnificently by distributing vaccines faster than any other European government, faster than any other major economy, which would not have been possible if we had listened to him.
So there he is doing the saying that they have done stuff to do, and as a result of doing this stuff that they said they have done, then they've had the fastest growth in the economy, and they got the vaccination rollout done. And if we'd listened to him, and that's another, I would submit, magical thinking. If we'd listened to him, it wouldn't have happened.
Well, that's a counterfactual fallacy, which we talked about.
Right.
I forget which episode, but
yeah,
it's in the archives.
Yeah. And so, by the way, the Office for National Statistics, which kept writing to Boris to tell him to stop saying more people in employment, but rather paid employment, not self-employed, because the former was never true, as during the 3 years of Boris's government, self-employment dropped by 800,000. But the Office of National Statistics also report that the highest rates recorded in the history of this country of employment were 1872, 1943 and 2018, and the lowest being during the Great Depression. So we could also add, I would submit, Malud, to this necromancy, Brexit and Ukraine, as if these are magical incantations to dispel any and all criticism of him, glossing over, for instance, the death of 130,000 people because of his late responses to COVID, and merely saying them. This makes them have happened and true and a legacy, and not hastily cobbled together a list of things that he had nothing to do with or did nothing about. His resignation speech and final paragraph to the Commons were no exceptions either.
And of course, I'm immensely proud of the achievements of this government, from getting Brexit done to settling our relations with the continent for over half a century, reclaiming the power for this country to make its own laws in Parliament, getting us all through the pandemic, delivering the fastest vaccine rollout in Europe, the fastest exit from lockdown, and in the last few months, leading the West in standing up to Putin's aggression in Ukraine. And yes, the last few years have been the greatest privilege of my life. And it's true that I helped to get the biggest Tory majority for 40 years and a huge realignment in UK politics, Mr. Speaker. We've transformed our democracy and restored our national independence. I've helped to get this country through a pandemic and helped save another country from barbarism. And frankly, that's enough to be going on with.
There's also accelerated truth there. So not only has he led the fight in condemning Putin, but actually he's saved an entire country from barbarism.
How the what?
Yeah. What? Yeah.
I heard that. I was like, what country is he talking about?
I don't
remember that happening.
Yeah.
I know there's been a lot on in the last few years, but,
Yes, exactly, but
I feel like I would remember
would have
that.
noticed that, yeah. Yeah. And you could be fairly sure he would have told us about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my submission to this fallacy is that he says these things, and therefore people will forget about other stuff, and therefore that will become his legacy. So he makes this causal thing by constantly talking about the best growth in the G7, constantly talking about the fastest vaccination rollout, constantly latterly talking about his intervention in releasing Ukraine from barbarism. And what that does is move the focus away from the fact that he hasn't done any of those things. And it's designed to convince voters that he's done a marvellous job. And on Twitter,
it's a bit questionable, but I guess I'll let you get away with it.
but it seemed to make sense at the time. Yeah, and what is horrible is that this convincing other people that he's done a good job seems to be working on Twitter, unless, of course, all of those IDs are the fake ones that Elon Musk is concerned about. Wouldn't be surprised. And at this final PMQs, Jeremy Corbyn stands up, and the prime, he kind of wants to interrupt his final stuff, and actually notices that what he's doing is magical thinking, and this is what he calls it.
I'm grateful to the Prime Minister for taking a break from his fantasy tour of this country. Could he take one moment to explain why 14 million people in this country are living in poverty, why there are more food banks than there are branches of McDonald's, why his government is presiding over the enriching of the richest, the impoverishment of the poorest, and the greatest job insecurity in industry after industry. He has created poverty, inequality and insecurity. That is his legacy.
So if the strict definition of this magical thinking fallacy is that there's this thing that didn't happen, that has no relationship to the truth, and that therefore causes something else that didn't happen and has no relation to the truth. So all of the things Boris talked about led to this marvellous legacy and a very competent government that's delivered on all of these things. Neither of those bears any resemblance to the truth of what's gone on, which is, as Corbyn points out, that there are more food banks where people go to get food because they can't afford to buy it. There are more of those than there are branches of McDonald's.
I mean, that's amazing just on its own, because there's a fuck ton of McDonald's.
Yeah. And that is all down to the reality of what's happened over the last 12 years, because there weren't that many food banks before they came into power, and now there's more than there are branches of McDonald's. Yeah. So,
and if you listen to certain Tory ministers, they're not even necessary.
No.
People don't even need them, do they?
You don't need them. No. And they
poverty and food insecurity aren't really a thing.
No, because, we've rolled out the fastest, which actually, incidentally, Boris had nothing to do with. Yeah. And nor did he have anything to do with the G7 growth. The reason the G7 growth was as large as it was is because it had plummeted. Yeah. And actually, the office of the House of Commons Library says that the UK takes a different approach to others in calculating output in the education and health sectors, for instance. And this has resulted,
tell the truth about it.
Yes, this has resulted in the GDP growth figures being lower in 2020 and higher in 2021 compared with other G7 economies. There we go. So, magical thinking means that people think Boris has done a good job when he's not had to do any job whatsoever.
He's definitely got people under his spell, I'll say that for him.
There you go, nice. Truss the cosplay Thatcher lives on Downing Street. tragic wooden puppet freak. She's got no policies. She says the economy's ruined. She's forgot who's been in charge. She can't string two words together, employing wild fallacies. Trust the tragic madam lives on Downing Street. That the Tories think that she can lead means we're completely up shit creek. Trust the tragic madam lives on Downing Street. That the Tories think that she can lead means we're completely up shit creek. Peter, Paul and Mary there with Puff the Magic Dragon.
Excellent. Yeah, either had to be that or Magical Mystery Tour.
Well, yeah, but then I had this feeling that I'd already done Magical Mystery Tour.
You may well have done, yeah.
Yeah, so I was thinking, have I done that one? And then suddenly...
You need a spreadsheet.
Yeah, well, yeah, quite. Yeah. And then Trust the Tragic Madam popped into my head, and I couldn't
or a
think
wiki.
Of anything else.
If anyone wants to do a Fallacious Trump wiki,
that would be great.
Yeah.
Do that. That'd be brilliant. Yeah, we could go through
handy.
And because there have been one or two people that have really liked the stings there, and that would be useful to refer back to the ones they like. We'll just play those ones again. Yeah.
So, in the Fallacy in the Wild, we like to talk about Fallacy of the Week from a non-political perspective, and our first example this week comes from The Handmaid's Tale, and is therefore not non-political at all.
Yeah.
So, this is from season 4, where Commander Waterford has been taken by the Canadians and is being visited by a fellow commander.
Has there been any negotiation on my behalf?
Such as?
A prisoner exchange, perhaps a promise to advance more humanitarian efforts?
What if we negotiate?
Yes, what if?
We'd embolden more kidnappings, more commanders being held hostage. Think of the precedent.
I'm thinking of my years of service to the Republic. I'm thinking of my wife and my son.
We will continue to send you our thoughts and prayers.
Yeah, so it's a brilliant trolling of Republicans, really. Suggesting that, there's stuff. Yeah, sure, there are things we could do, but what we will do is send you thoughts and prayers.
Yeah.
The idea that sending thoughts and prayers is going to have any actual effect whatsoever.
Yeah.
And so this, this very devout Christian who is asking for help, when that's what he's told he's getting is thoughts and prayers, his expression is like, well, fuck, that's not going to do anything.
Yeah. Oh, the irony. Because that's always comes to the fore when you think, oh, yeah, if only, body armour was made of thoughts and prayers, that would be, and it would mean surely that that no people who are at church schools would ever get gunned down by a mad gunman. Yeah.
So, I've only just recently finally got around to watching The Handmaid's Tale. I just kind of binged it completely in a couple of weeks, but it is so good. But the most unrealistic thing about it, unfortunately, is that the theocrats give a shit about the environment. That other than that, it's absolutely all. I'm just watching it going, yep, this is like any minute now, basically. This is what things look like.
Yeah.
Fucking hell.
Yeah. Have you got to the one where the mashup by...
Yeah, a friend of ours, Jonas Crabtree, did a mashup of Philip Glass and
Heart of Glass.
Heart of Glass by Blondie. It's used in, I think, episode 2 or 3. It's an early one. Yeah, it's a protest that is soundtracked by that. Very, very good.
Cool. Yeah. And if you're interested in how we know him, go check out our movie. Nothing to declare, because he did the music for it.
He did.
Check him out on IMDb, and it will lead you to our masterwork. Masterwork. Yeah, let's call it a masterwork.
Yeah, or just look up the Daft Beatles, because that's the
there you go.
the name he did it under, I believe. So
Yeah.
Anyway, our next example is from Friends.
Yay! Of course,
of course. And this is actually the cold open of an episode where Phoebe has a toothache.
You need a dentist? I've got a good one.
Oh, thanks. I have a good one too. I can't see him.
See, that is the problem with invisible dentists.
Why? Why can't you go to him?
Because every time I go to the dentist, somebody dies.
That is so weird, because every time I go to the dentist, I look down the hygienist's blouse.
Baby, what? What? Yeah. First there was my Aunt Mary, and then there was John, my mailman, and then my cowboy friend Albino Bob.
And all of these people actually died?
Yes, while I was in the chair. That's why I take such good care of my teeth now, you know? It's not about oral hygiene. I floss to save lives.
Eves, come on, you didn't kill anybody. These people just happened to die when you went to the dentist. It's just a coincidence.
Well, tell that to them. Oh, you can't. They're dead.
So good, such a nicely written thing. That's if you wanted to point somebody to Friends, you go, just watch that.
Ross, as always, the voice of reason.
Yeah,
pointing out that coincidences happen.
yeah. Well, this is the one that made me think of the chocolate biscuit thing. You know,
right?
I ate this chocolate biscuit, and then people died, so I don't eat chocolate biscuits anymore.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Phoebe, being Phoebe, believes that there is some causal relationship between her going to the dentist and people she knows dying.
Yeah.
And she calls it a curse, basically. When spoiler for a 30-year-old episode or whatever it is, she goes and nobody dies. She is like, yay, the curse is broken. So she is seeing it as this kind of, magical link somehow.
Yeah. I love that. I'm flossing to save lives. So good, isn't it? Yeah. That's a humanitarian campaign right there.
So our final example is from the Garfunkel and Oates song 2931. Are you aware of Garfunkel and Oates?
Yeah, I think you've mentioned them before, but I could see why you like them, because they're they're a bit Tim Minchin in their storytelling. Yes. There's a tale going on that subverts the actual song. So it's this very gorgeously constructed song, and then it eats itself at the same time.
Yeah, they're a fantastic double act. Kate McCucci and Ricky Lindholm, who do comedy songs, and they're all brilliant. Basically, this one is called 2931, and it is the singers are the same woman, aged 29 and 31.
Just say, hey, universe, I'm ready. It'll happen when you least expect it. Well, I don't expect it at all now, so I guess it's right around the corner. Maybe you're putting out the wrong vibe. Maybe you're closed off to love. Let me tell you a secret. It's called The Secret. Here's another secret. You're an asshole. Your negativity is a self-fulfilling prophecy. The reason things go well for me is because of positivity. Well, I'm positive fertility always begins to atrophy when infantile fantasy eclipses true reality. It never once occurred to me that things won't work out perfectly. When God closes a door, you see, he opens a window.
You realize that's a smaller opening, right? You used to be able to just walk out a door, and now you have to climb out some slightly ajar window somewhere, possibly falling like 8 stories to your death. That is not an upgrade.
So good. And then it goes on, and I love the way it goes on, and the 29 one is all positive, and the 30 one is just screaming.
Yeah, there's nobody left.
That's right, for about 16 bars. She just screams underneath. So good.
It's a really good song.
Yeah.
First of all, she brings The Secret into it. Which is just about kind of asking the universe for what you want and you'll get it.
Yeah.
And suggesting that, yes, it's self-fulfilling prophecies and positivity, meaning that you'll find love and all that kind of stuff, is her naive, as in the perspective of the song, view on finding a partner.
It's a bit like Jim Carrey and his tale of when he wrote himself a check for $1 million, saying one day I'll be able to cash this, and then one day he was able to cash it, and he said it was just because I manifested that, and it happens.
Yeah.
And you think, there was a time when I lived in East London, and at the end of my road was the bus stop to go to work. Oh, it was when I was working at Channel 5, so I go from Hackney to Channel 5 on the on the bus. It just seemed to be that every time I got to the end of the road, the bus would come. And if I was a bit late, I would run and the bus would be there. And if I was a bit early, I would walk and the bus would be there. It was nothing to do with the fact that I probably left the house in almost enough time to get there for the timetabled bus.
Yeah.
It was purely my presence making the bus arrive.
Yeah.
And then it would make me laugh to do that. So I'll just keep doing it to see if it did it. And yes, it wasn't me making the universe. It was just me leaving the house at the right time, because I'd had looked at the bus timetable at some point and gone, right, I need to leave the house with plenty of time.
Yeah. And interestingly, going back to sports for a moment, that kind of visualization thing of picturing success. There is some research that suggests that absolutely doesn't work for sport.
Oh, really?
It's like
I
the
thought you were going to say the opposite.
No. Visualizing your success and kind of picturing yourself winning and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
If anything has a negative effect,
it's that.
Yeah. If there's any kind of benefit to visualization, according at least to this research, I don't think it was Richard Wiseman who did the research, but I think he talked about it in one of his books. It might have been 59 Seconds. But yeah, the visualization works when people visualize themselves training. It basically kind of encourages them to train harder and better.
Right.
But visualizing them succeeding in sport is actually has a negative effect on their outcomes.
Ability to succeed in sport.
Yeah,
Wow.
So we're gonna play fake news, folks. I love the game. It's a great game. I understand the game as well as anybody.
Yes, it's time for Fake News, the game where I read out 3 Trump quotes, 2 of which are real and 1 I made up, and Mark has to figure out which one is fake news.
You see, I was about to talk about that just visualizing this winning thing. You see, it's purely, that's what I've done all this time. I've just seen myself winning, and obviously, clearly, it's not worked at all. Because, I've visualized it 94 times out of 94, and it's only worked 46 times out of that. So there's something, I'm obviously doing something wrong. There's a moment when I don't quite believe it, and I think that's what's doing it. I've jinxed it because those times when I've been visualizing it, I've been holding the beer in my left hand instead of my right hand. That's where I've been going wrong. So I'm just going to have to double my bets and hold beers in both hands.
It's the only sensible.
It's the only sensible way to win from now on. Yeah.
I might give that a go too.
Yeah.
So this week, these once again come from the Faith and Freedom Coalition conference.
Okay. God, how long did he talk for?
It was a while.
Yeah. It was a rich mine, a rich seam to mine. Yeah.
And these are also themed. They are times he lied about numbers.
Okay.
Not including the times he lied about the number of people who were at his rallies, because there were plenty of those examples that I could have used.
Yeah.
So, statement number 1. I gave $28 billion of the China money to the farmers, our great American farmers. Nobody ever got China to pay 10 cents before, even presidents who were in for 8 years, 12 years, in one case 16 years. I only had 4, and it was cruelly cut short by a rigged election. Maybe I'll have 4 more, who knows, we'll have to see. But nobody ever made so much from China, and I gave it all to the farmers, who were so badly treated by previous administrations. They never got anything from them.
Okay. In one case, 16 years, really? Yeah, okay. Cut short by a rigged election. Okay.
Statement number 2.
All right.
I said to the Secretary of Defence and others in the room, it's been verified now, they said 10 to 20,000. I thought I said 10, but they said no, you said 10 to 20,000. If you had 200 National Guardsmen or military, January 6th would not have been January 6th as we know it. But as you know, Nancy Pelosi is in charge of security of the Capitol, along with the Mayor of Washington, D.C., and they turned it down. They didn't want it. I believe the Mayor turned it down in writing. There's a letter out there somewhere. So he's claiming there that he authorised 10 to 20,000 National Guardsmen to be at the Capitol on January 6th.
Right.
But Nancy turned it down.
Okay. I thought it was going to go like from 10 all the way up to 20,000. Yeah. Let's just get 10. Maybe we need 11, 12, 20,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And And finally, this one, he's talking about Air Force One.
Right.
I walk in and they wanted me to sign this contract for $5.8 billion. I said, who made the deal? They said, Obama. I said, I'm not signing it. Why? Because it's too much. They said, you don't know anything about it. I said, I know, but it's too much. I told Boeing, Dennis, we're not going to buy those planes. What do you mean you're not going to buy them? I said, do we have a cancellation clause? The general told me, yes, sir. I said, good, let's cancel.
I told Boeing, Dennis, I said, Dennis Boeing. Yeah. Yeah, oh, what was that? Did he call something?
Tim Apple.
Tim Apple, there you go. Yeah. The general told me, yes, sir. I said, okay, let's cancel. All right, okay, so China money. Only have four, and then so he can't. It starts, as always, it starts with, I helped some other people out. And then it just, like, within a sentence, it talks about his presidency and how badly he was served. Right. Okay. And then then it kind of goes back and goes, yeah. All right. And then 10 to 20. Okay. Well, the Dennis Boeing, it's got a yes sir in there. Which no general ever said that to him. Okay, my gut feel is the China money is, but but I think I'm going to go for number 3 is the one you made up.
Okay, so of the other two.
I think the 10 to 20,000 one, it suddenly looks very fake. is the one I'm more confident about.
Okay,
I think he said that.
So number 2, is real.
I said to the Secretary of Defense and others in the room, it's been verified now. They said 10 to 20,000. I thought I said 10, but they said no. You said from 10 to 20,000. If you had 200. National Guardsmen or military, January 6th would not have been January 6th as we know it. But as you know, Nancy Pelosi is in charge of security of the Capitol, along with the mayor of Washington, D.C. And they turned it down. They didn't want it. I believe the mayor turned it down in writing. There's a letter out there somewhere.
Just so vague, isn't it? So what's been verified? The fact that there were others in the room. And that I said to the secretary and others in the room.
So I'll tell you what's been verified.
Right. Nothing.
So his claim is that he formally authorised 10 to 20,000. Well, now 20,000. He's saying National Guardsmen on January 6th. Like before the fact, so that he'd authorised it, and like during the week before, Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of DC. Said, in writing, especially, turned it down, said they didn't want anyone, and that was it. So what's been verified is, on the evening of the 5th, Chris Miller, the Secretary of Defense, acting Secretary of Defense at the time, mentioned to Trump in a meeting that they were prepared to provide any National Guard support that the district requested.
Right.
Trump said to him, you're going to need 10,000 people. Like, boasting at how many people were going to be in DC, and saying, you know, if you want to stop them, you're going to need 10,000 National Guard people. So Chris Miller says he was just basically boasting about it. He was being hyperbolic, and that was it. That's the extent of the verification. There's no record of him authorising even 10,000, certainly not 20,000. No one's ever said 20,000. He's just added that for nothing.
Yeah.
Nancy Pelosi doesn't have the authority to deny that from happening. Basically, if If the president orders the National Guard to go to DC, they're going to DC. And one of the people that PolitiFact at least questioned is, that's how we know it didn't happen. It was Dwight Sterling, the Center for Law and Military Policy, said no one can prevent a presidential order from being followed with regard to where troops go or don't go. That it didn't occur is evidence that there was never such an order.
So he's trying to shift the blame to say, well, actually, I'm not in charge of security. As you know, Nancy is in charge of security of the Capitol, which is true, but and they turned it down. And I believe he turned it, so he's just accelerated to say, he believed it. He turned it down in writing. And not only did he come from this belief that he turned it down in writing, and there is a letter out there somewhere. Surely it would have been. It's not that difficult to find. Surely,
you would think if it existed,
it would be in the presidential records.
No,
it would have been received at the White House.
The Secretary of the Army, Ryan McCarthy, said on January 7th, no other requests were made other than DC Mayor Muriel Bowser's request for 340 members of the DC National Guard for traffic and crowd control. And that was again before January 6th, had nothing to do with Trump. She requested it. Yeah. That was the only request that was made. Pentagon have confirmed that. They have no requests on file. The National Guard website lists those kinds of things and doesn't have any record of any of that. There's no evidence whatsoever to show that he did that. Jane Campbell, the president and CEO of the US Capitol Historical Society, who, deals with the history of the US Capitol, said no congressional official, including Nancy Pelosi, or body has the authority to activate the National Guard to the US Capitol, only the president. If the president calls the National Guard to the US Capitol, no congressional official has the authority to decline its service.
Which adds more weight to the fact that they weren't there can only mean he didn't ask for them.
Yeah. But he has made this claim. And others, Hannity has made the claim as well that Nancy Pelosi turned down 10,000 National Guardsmen. It just, none of it happened.
Wow. Wow.
So you also think that number one is real?
I do.
And number one?
Yeah.
It's fake news.
Oh, you see, you should have got me my gut. Oh, you idiot. Idiot, man. Idiot. Oh, what?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was that convincing switch from talking about the good he did for other people and then a sentence later talking about the bad that was done to him. Oh,
yeah.
what?
He has previously claimed that there were presidents who were in for 8 years and in one case 16 years. He didn't mention 12 years before. Right. In fact, he should have mentioned 12 years because FDR, who was the only president who was elected to 4 terms, died at the beginning of his 4th term.
Right.
So, in fact, he only really had 12 years in office. No one's ever had 16.
No.
So.
I thought there was there wasn't a rule brought in.
It was after FDR, yeah. It was a 2-term limit. Yeah.
Right. Because it kills them?
I don't think so, no.
Okay. Right. It just makes everyone go grey.
Yeah. It was just like, we're not going to have anyone that good again.
Yeah. So we'll guarantee that we don't. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, no. So really troublingly, that means that number 3 is real.
And this was the beginning of a long rant about Air Force One and many claims.
Right.
I walk in and they wanted me to sign this contract for $5.8 billion. I said, who made the deal? They said, Obama. I said, I'm not signing it. Why? Because it's too much. They said, you don't know anything about it. I said, I know, but it's too much. And I told Boeing, Dennis, we're not going to buy those planes. What do you mean you're not going to buy them? I said, do we have a cancellation clause? The general told me, yes, sir. I said, good, let's cancel.
It's just more of his bloody terrible cruise liner stick, isn't it?
So he goes on to claim that they would have had to pay $200 million just to cancel. That was like the cancellation fee.
Right.
So he said, no, let's not cancel then, let's negotiate. Yeah. And he told Boeing that he wasn't paying for the planes. It needed to have a 3 at the front. It needed to be $3 billion and something. And if it was 4 or more, he just wasn't doing it. And they said, "Oh, we can't do it. That's too cheap." And then he said, "All right, well, I'm not going to do it." And then 2 weeks later, they called him back and they said, "Oh, we'll take off $500 million." And he said, "No, it has to be a 3." And then he left it again. And then 2 months later, they called him back and say, "Oh, we'll take another $500 million off." And eventually, he got it down through his brilliant deal making to 3.9999999. So like 1 cent off $4 billion.
Right.
So he's claiming that it was started out at 5.8 billion, and he got it down to just under 4 billion. Saved so much money because he was an awesome deal maker, and now Boeing are having trouble with it.
I'm suspecting that none of that is true. That he didn't do that.
Let's have a quick look to see if there's anything true.
Let me just go through it.
Yeah, no, none of that is true. No.
Brilliant.
Yeah. No, what actually happened was that when he got into office, Boeing were under contract to do a redesign of Air Force One.
Right.
Under contract for $170 million. Not 5.8 billion.
5 billion. No.
170 million.
So he negotiates them up from 170 to 3.999.
So they were all they were doing was doing the kind of preliminary work to design the new Air Force Ones, because the two, because it's 2 aircraft. The previous ones, they've stopped making that model, so they had to make new models. They had to do all of the various things that you need to do to make Air Force Ones, because it has to have all the communication, it has to be safe, it has to all of that stuff. So they were doing the designs. And they expected, after getting that 170 million, to be able to then get the contract to build 2 planes. The Defense Department budget over the next 5 years, fiscal years 2015 to 2021, said it would be $2.87 billion. That doesn't include the purchase of the planes.
Wow.
That's kind of just for all the work that goes around them. The Teal Group, which is an aerospace and defence market analysis firm, they estimated that on top of that 2.87 billion, there would be an extra over the next 4 years before the planes were actually ready. There would be an extra $858 million to spend. That would include buying the planes and doing all the finishing work. So the total was 3.73 billion,
that
was budgeted for, but not agreed with Boeing or allocated or a deal done by Obama or anything like that. 2 billion less than he claimed, and 250 million less than he ended up paying. So he negotiated them up by $250 million.
In his story, from something that was already budgeted for.
That's his brilliant deal making.
And it's immediately I was thinking of Ghost Can't Do It, and his brilliant deal making in there, And
in fact, one of the ways that his changes ended up costing more money is that he decided to change the colour scheme, because Air Force One has been this robin's egg blue thing since Kennedy, and he wanted to change it so that it's kind of white on the top, bold red stripe along the middle, and then dark blue on the bottom, which is coincidentally both red, white and blue, American flag, but also a kind of inverse of Trump's own 747 design for the Trump plane. But the darker colour causes problems in terms of the engineering, because it increases the heat retention on the plane around the engines and around all of that stuff. So they had to do a redesign just based on the fact that he wanted a different colour that ended up costing significantly more. So now that Biden's in, because the planes were never due to be ready until 2024. Now they've been put back because of COVID. But now that Biden's in, he's gone back to the Robin's Egg blue. He's like, fuck that. Let's just have the original colour. It's fine.
Saving $270 million.
So Biden has saved considerably more on Air Force One just based on changing the colour scheme back to what it was than Trump saved.
So Trump negotiated that the deal, like he does these famous The Art of the Deal nonsense, for a plane that never got built and got, because of COVID, and got redesigned anyway.
Yeah.
And yet he's fabricating this entire story just so that he can get that line in, you don't know anything about it. I said I know, but it's too much, which causes a laugh from drunk, mad, captive audiences.
Oh, and of course there was never a cancellation fee, let alone $200 million, because the agreement hadn't been signed. There was no contract.
There was no agreement. No.
So you can't.
They would...
And I mean, he says it in that paragraph. He was being asked to sign a contract, and then he's asked, "Do we have a cancellation clause?" What, in this contract that you haven't signed yet?
You haven't... Yeah. Damn it.
Yeah, which means, unfortunately, you are still further from your goal.
Further away.
Well, you're the same distance from 50. You just have less time now to get...
Exactly.
to get there. You need to get 4 out of the next 5 in order to make 50 by.
Oh, but that's all right. I just need to appeal to a higher power. That'll be fine. I just need to manifest that from the universe.
And it's time for the part of the show that this week at least is called The Seventh Public Hearing Was Not a Logical Fallacy, because although last time we talked about the Supreme Court things, the previous one, we talked about the first 6 public hearings from the January 6th committee.
In one go.
Yeah. So that was a bit of a kind of a rush job. This one, we only have one public hearing to talk about, because the last one, the 8th public hearing, is starting in about an hour.
Right now. Yeah.
So we can't talk about that one yet. That'll have to wait.
Yes. I am currently in France as I say this, and the people that I've met, most of the people I've met here are Americans, and they're all glued to it. So I was talking about the hearings from our distant knowledge base of having kind of watched these things with fascination, and the explosion of rantiness from genuine Americans is a joy to behold. And I think it's because they're just as distant from the whole Boris phenomena, so they're intrigued by that and my insights into that. But to be able to talk to a Brit about it, so because they can't talk to the French about it, because the French
don't give a shit about it. No.
That's right, they're worried about Marine Le Pen. They don't give a shit. But to talk to somebody that actually is interested and quite fascinated by it and talking about it, it's great to just kind of hear them ranting. And I went, oh yeah. So will you be watching the? And one of them described it as the season finale.
Yeah.
And then we got talking about the TV style presentation of the thing, and our theories that they've learned a lot from the Mueller report and the first impeachment, and now they're rolling this stuff out in a proper series, cliffhangers, and pulling people in, like as unexpected new characters get pulled in, and you go, oh my God, that's somebody from the Proud Boys. Oh my God, it's actually Jim Watkins from QAnon. Yeah, there he is.
And there have been reports that while this may be the season finale, it may not be the end of the series, and there may be another season, or at least a few more hearings later, either later in the summer or in the fall.
It's going to be like volume 2 of Stranger Things,
Could be.
Yeah. There'll be feature length. Yeah,
but they're certainly looking to wrap it up in the next one. This one was focused largely on Trump's links to extremist groups and how his actions motivated them on the day. It was led largely by Jamie Raskin and Stephanie Murphy, and featured in-person testimony from a former Oath Keeper and a guy who was just kind of a person who wasn't a member of any of the extremist groups, but was a Trump follower who was convinced to go to Washington on January 6th by Trump's rhetoric.
And didn't leave until the moment they were told to. And he was saying, well, if he'd have told us earlier, we would have just gone. And you kind of go, it's quite good to have... I think we talked about this before, that, as documentary filmmakers, you and I know that what you need to sell the story of several hundred people or, you know, a community is one person to represent them.
Absolutely.
And just talk about it. And there's nothing more compelling than hearing an ordinary person talking about how they've responded to the events, and you are able, therefore, to extrapolate to the enormity of the crowd.
Yeah.
Particularly up against the guy from the Proud Boys. And also, nothing better than a reformed thug to talk about the thuggery. And he was, I quite liked it when he came on, because I was thinking, oh, yeah, he's straight out of Central Casting. He's got tattoos on his knuckles and everything. You know? He should have had, like, it's a bit like Vivian out of The Young Ones. He could have had metal
stars on
stars on his head. Yeah, so it's that kind of stuff. But then and the fact that he mentioned his grandchild, he said, I've got a granddaughter, and he kind of go, that's just excellent. It's the perfect, you know, from a TV point of view, it's really good.
So we started off with Liz Cheney talking about how the arguments from the right have changed over the course of the hearings. And they've moved from just denying everything to essentially saying Trump was just kind of given bad advice by everyone.
Right.
And she pointed out, first of all, that almost everyone who was giving him advice was telling him that the election was over and he should concede.
Yeah.
But also, she said, Trump is a 76-year-old man and not an impressionable child. Which I think is quite a generous assessment of Trump.
Yeah, I know. I know. It did make me chuckle. Kind of go, in our experience, you kind of go, well, he might be, you know, a bit of both, Yeah, the fact that he's a responsible adult. Well,
he's an impressionable child.
Rather,
in the body of a 76-year-old man.
Exactly, yeah. He's responsible for his own actions rather than he's a responsible adult. Yeah, I take it back, he isn't. Many of the people who are said to have been giving him bad are the ones that are saying to him, what you're thinking of is crazy. So they're kind of flipping that round, and they're not advising him, they're not giving him good advice other than what you're thinking of doing we ought not to do, rather than going, what we could do.
Cheney said the strategy is to blame people his advisors called, quote, the crazies for what Donald Trump did. And I mean, we heard about a meeting on, I think it's December 18th, I feel like.
Yeah, so a long time before.
Which was described as the craziest meeting of the Trump presidency, which has got to be a pretty fucking high bar, isn't it?
Oh, my God. Yeah, can you imagine? Well, didn't... who kind of was in there and sort of ran... Cipollone.
Yeah.
Cipollone?
Well, he walked into the meeting.
Yeah.
The meeting was Trump, Sidney Powell, Giuliani, Mike Flynn, and for some reason... The CEO of Overstock.com, Patrick Byrne.
Yeah.
Fuck knows why. But
because the pillow guy wasn't available?
Maybe.
Yeah. So, what are you overstocked with? Well, you know, I've got lots of AR-15s.
But Cipollone walked in apparently and was like, "What is going on here?"
Yes, exactly.
Looked at Patrick Byrne and said, "Who are you?"
Yeah.
And was a bit worried about what was going on, and that meeting turned tense, I think was the word used by one of the staffers.
Yes. Who heard screaming or something down the hall. Yeah.
Those people specifically proposed the immediate mass seizure of state election machines by the US military.
It's the very definition of a military coup.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Since, you know, essentially, it's the military stepping in to overturn an election on behalf of the guy who lost.
Yeah.
And at the end of that meeting, at some point, they decided not to bring the military in to seize the election machines. Possibly Cipollone had some impact when he said, this is a fucking awful idea.
Yeah.
And I think Eric Hirschman was in that meeting, or came into the meeting as well. The guy who's kind of comedy lawyer. So they apparently managed to have some impact, and that idea was rejected. But it was after that meeting, and it's like 1:47 a.m. or something like that, when Trump sent the tweet saying, "Come to DC on January 6th, will be wild," he was kind of still fired up from that insanity.
Because wasn't there a tweet that was a draft or that had been written that he was going to send?
That was before the actual rally on January 6th. That was closer to the date. But we did hear later on about a tweet that because they were talking about how much you can show that the stuff that happened on the day of January 6th was planned, as opposed to the argument that has been put out quite a lot, that it was just, Trump made it recently. We heard him, that this was a protest that got out of hand.
Yeah.
He has said, and kind of disavowing any input or knowledge or impact on what people actually did. And they were like, I can't be held responsible for what people who just think that I should have won do.
Yeah.
But one of the draft tweets that we saw was saying, "I will be making a big speech at 10 a.m. on January 6th at the Ellipse, south of the White House. Please arrive early. Massive crowds expected. March to the Capitol after. Stop the steal."
Yeah.
So that tweet didn't go out, but it was a tweet, written for him by one of his social media people, and it is being used as evidence that there was a plan.
Yeah.
He didn't just decide on the spot to say, okay, let's go down to the Capitol. That was something that was already in the works. And as we have heard from Cassidy Hutchinson and from other people, and in fact there was another message, I think this one was a text message from Kylie Jane Kremer to Mike Lindell.
Yeah.
This also brings in, first of all, the fact that was totally planned, but also the fact that they knew it was a bad idea to make it public.
Because
it says, it cannot get out about the march because I will be in trouble with the National Park Service and all the agencies, but POTUS is going to just call for it, quotes, unexpectedly.
Yeah, so they knew ahead of time that he was going to unexpectedly go, let's just walk down the road, and I'll be with you. I'll be right there. I'll be, leading you on. He didn't, obviously.
No. We did, as you said, see from Jim Watkins, the administrator of Aitken, father of Q.
Yes, father of Q. And thankfully, his facial hair, Jim Watkins' facial hair, calmed down a bit.
I mean, you wouldn't know it. If that was the first time you'd seen him, you wouldn't know it. That had calmed down from anything.
No, that's
it's still
true.
Pretty wild.
It's quite wild. It's a bit
based on previous images,
where he's got any amount of wax, and just madness going on. Yeah,
waxed madness.
Waxed madness, and he is a difficult third album by Jim Watkins. yeah, and he's another bloody narcissist. The contrast was between the people that took part in the rioting and now are filled with regret, or just incredulity at what went on, versus the people who are manipulating it to their own ends. And it's just that they, you can see the genuineness and the sincerity on the face of the guy from the Proud Boys who was actually in there doing the fighting, and then he was going, "Oh, for fuck's sake, this could have been so much worse."
I was going to correct that because
Oath
Keepers. And he wasn't
Oath Keepers, not the Proud. Oh, right. Okay, the Oath on the face of the Oath Keeper who warned them. This could have all been
he was
so much
the Oath
worse.
Keeper guy was previously kind of spokesman for the Oath Keepers. Left, a couple of years ago, like before any of this happened.
When it all got terribly.
Yeah, it was basically when they vocally denied the Holocaust. Was when he was like, I don't think I can be in this group anymore.
He reminded me of the founder of the Hells Angels, who died recently, Sonny Barger. He was on the TV talking about the Hells Angels, and then he became sort of disenchanted with it, and then spoke about the how it's all gone horribly wrong, and that was never his ideal, and it was a force for good, and now it's been corrupted. And all that kind of stuff, and you get that sense with the Oath Keeper guy that it's a convincing warning when he says it could have been so much worse, and
could still be, yeah,
and could
absolutely.
still be, yeah. Whereas the likes of Jim Watkins seem to just be in it for them, and Trump they're just kind of toying with the whole thing. They're playing games with us, and all that kind of
yeah.
stuff.
In a way, this segment with Jim Watkins and also Jody Williams, the former owner of the Donald.win, which is a racist.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just openly anti-Semitic site in support of Donald Trump. That segment seemed to largely be just saying, look, there's some really fucking weird people out on social media, and they totally responded to the stuff Trump was saying.
Yeah.
That was like, we're going to be talking about extremist groups in a bit, but these guys, these aren't even like organised weirdos. These are just online weirdos, and they believed everything he was saying and came to Washington.
Yeah.
The people on these sites, the people on these really extremist echo chambers, where all they're hearing is this crazy conspiracy stuff, and they are constantly feeding into it, and the rhetoric that they are getting on there and posting on there. There was people posting, bring handcuffs, wait near the tunnels, and someone else saying, bring body armor, knuckles, shields, hats. Bats. I read that wrong. Hats would be fine. I wouldn't have a problem if they were all just wearing hats. Not all just wearing hats. That would have been weird.
No, that would have been worse, yeah.
But hats rather than bats. That's what I say. That's my new poster. Hats, not bats.
Hats, not bats. Yeah. You can stick a 6-inch nail through a hat, and it will only harm the wearer of the hat. Yeah.
So yes, bats, pepper spray, whatever it takes.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of stuff that is posted on these sites.
If they were trying to make the link between what Trump said and the fact that extremists were coming as a result of it, you need to go to the extremist sites. So that's why Jim Watkins was there, and the guy from Donald.win was there, because they are the representatives of those very extremists, as it were, or rather they represent the platforms upon which those extremists congeal. That's the right word. Yeah.
And that's why also they spent some time linking Mike Flynn and Roger Stone to those extremist groups, the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers. And in fact, Patrick Byrne, the CEO of Overstock as well, they showed an image that had Flynn and Patrick Byrne among Oath Keepers, and didn't they show I think they showed Roger Stone taking the Proud Boys oath or the Oath Keepers oath or whatever it was, which was a weird thing. But it's these are people who are clearly Trump's close advisors. The advisors he turns to when his real advisors are telling him stuff he doesn't want to hear.
That's right. Yeah, when he wants people to agree with what his crazy notions. Those are his advisors that he turns to. It's not by almost by proxy. These advisors that were advising him to do this stuff are in the company of these right-wing militia groups.
It makes their degrees of separation from the leader of the free world very, very short, doesn't it? These people who are, not even self-described militias. The guy was saying they wouldn't call themselves a militia, but that's what they are. These people who see themselves as the last armed hope for civilization, basically. Against the woke left and all that stuff. They very much have the ear of the president, and vice versa. And that's exactly what this entire hearing was designed to show, was just how close these links are, and how actually when he said something they take notice, and vice versa.
And it was also establishing that the things that he was saying, by other sensible adults who aren't right-wing militias, they were saying, well, those ideas are just mad.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, all of the adults in the room. And that's the thing. In this December 18th meeting, there weren't any adults in the room. They were all crazy people.
Yeah. They were
impressionable children. It was only when Cipollone and Hirschman found out about the meeting and went in and that there was pushback. And before that, they were all sitting around deciding how to ruin the world. Because of their crazy conspiracies.
I wonder whether the relationship kind of went both ways, with the right-wing extremists being there and feeding Trump's ego, because he likes people who like him, so they like him, and so he, in order to continue to be liked by them, he would court their devotion by listening to what they were talking about. Because how was it that these paramilitary groups who are, anti-Semites and anti-everything latched on to Trump? Is it because he was...
I think it's a lock and key type thing. I think he happened to fit into that exact area of the paranoia, the conspiracy thinking, and the racism. That exactly married with what they'd been doing for decades. And suddenly they didn't have to hide it anymore. So,
Yes, exactly that. There is that. Yes, quite.
We got an interesting insight into the point at which someone turned away from Trump. And remember, I think the really important thing to remember is, although all of these people who have, but Liz Cheney as well, but also all of the people who have given testimony, Cassidy Hutchinson, Cipollone, all of the people we've seen, they're all terrible people who stuck with Trump.
Yes, exactly.
Almost all the way. The fact that at some point, eventually, after years of all of the shit that he did, eventually they got to a point where they were like, oh, okay, that's a bit too far. That's not okay. They should have got to that point much, much earlier.
And they keep going, well, that's just Trump being Trump. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt. You go, no, surely, anyone else, a Democrat, had done one of those things, you would have been on him, and they make him
but we did get the point where Brad Parscale, who he's worked on Trump's campaign and his website and his social media and all kinds of stuff like that, grifted a reasonable amount of money for himself in those roles, and has absolutely supported Trump through 99% of his worst stuff. We got a text exchange between him and Katrina Pearson, the former spokesperson, where he said that actually, after January 6th, he regretted helping him get elected. And he said, this is about Trump pushing for uncertainty, a sitting president asking for civil war. This week, I feel guilty for helping him win. Well, fuck you. You should have felt guilty for helping him win right at the beginning.
Exactly.
And then every day
on
since.
The first thing, on the first thing, what happened,
And Katrina Pearson said, you did what you felt right at the time, and therefore it was right, which is not how that works.
No, that absolutely, yes.
And then he said, but a woman is dead. If I was Trump and I knew my rhetoric killed someone, Katrina Pearson said it wasn't his rhetoric, and Pascal wrote back, Katrina, yes, it was. And yes, it was.
I love that. 2 messages. Katrina, yes, it was. And it was. But of course it was.
And she's still fucking defending him at that point.
Well, she's the Nadine Dorries of the Trump administration.
But that's the point. After everything that's happened up to January 6th, that's the point at which Brad Parscale went, oh, actually, that's pretty bad. I mean, he got so many people killed during his presidency.
Yep.
Just I mean, all of the COVID deaths that he could have prevented by going on screen and saying early in the process, please be sensible, socially distance, wear your masks, take this seriously.
Yeah.
The number of people he could have saved by doing that. And yet Brad is like, yeah, but a woman got shot because she believed him. That's too much.
Well, it's the same as Boris's thing where he just kind of goes, "Oh yeah, but we got the vaccine rolled out, which we couldn't have done, which we absolutely could have done by it, and so what? 130,000 people still died.
200,000 people we're up to now in the UK.
Wow, Jesus Christ! Many of whom could have been prevented if you'd gone into lockdown sooner and didn't come out quite as... And he's now celebrating that we came out of lockdown
we were
than
one of the
everybody
first
else.
countries to come out of lockdown, and then one of the first countries to go back into lockdown.
Then tens of thousands
we'd done
of
it too
people
early.
died as a result. And then and then we go back round again. Like a record player, round.
So we heard from... We've talked about actually the people who gave testimony, but yes, basically Stephen Ayres is just a Trump supporter, not a member of an extremist group, but was absolutely motivated by Trump's rhetoric, motivated by his that specific December 19th tweet, and was most of his testimony was saying essentially, I was in a bit of a bubble. I believed the things he was saying. I was motivated and angry based, when I believed that the election had been stolen because of the stuff Trump was saying, and that's why I went there. And that's why I went into the Capitol, and when he said to leave, that's immediately I left. And all of the people I was with and all the people around me were just doing the same thing. We were doing what we thought he was telling us to do.
If Trump just kind of said, well, I didn't, or, his supporters are saying, oh, no, he didn't mean anything by that. He wasn't being deliberate in any way. So what they've done is shown the draft tweet. They've shown the people who are saying we're not going to arrange that because we'll get in trouble with the Park Service, but he's going to do this. In the sure and certain knowledge that people like Stephen Ayres, and if we, as Stephen Ayres implies, all of the people there were like him, in that they would respond to Trump. So Trump knew that, and Trump knew what he was doing. So they're just kind of giving us everything. All we need, and we're never going to get it, is Trump to say, yes, that's what I intended.
Yeah.
So they've done
that's why he waited 4 hours before he told them to leave.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Well, and that's what the season finale is going to be about, isn't it? It's going to be about what the White House was doing during the... It's such a brilliantly constructed series, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's so good. Yeah, because you're given all the pieces, and then it is the perfect documentary because you're led up to that, and then you're going, okay, so what was going on in the White House when it was happening? So these people who are saying, we knew what he meant when he tweeted that. Here's the draft tweet that we wrote for him to send. Here's the bit where he changed the speeches to get them to put the stuff about Pence back in. Here's the bit where the Oath Keeper guy was saying, well, yeah, look, they would have hung him. That's the kind of people that they are. And then here's Stephen Ayres, a poor sap who just kind of goes, well, yeah, I'm just going to follow what he said, and he said it, and I did it. So there's a the
Oath Keeper guy,
connection.
Jason Van Tattenhove.
Yeah.
First of all, one of the things I've noticed during these hearings is that Benny Thompson, the chairman, does not practice names. He will just say a name, say like some version. When Brad Raffensperger was a witness, Benny Thompson said like 5 or 6 different variations on Raffensperger. And it was just like, it doesn't matter. Whatever comes out is fine.
Right there. Yeah.
And the similar thing with Tattenhove. Mr. Furton.
Yeah. And you kind of think there is at the BBC in the UK there is a pronunciation unit where you go to find out, how to pronounce Ahmadinejad.
Yeah.
These kind of when people occur in the news, there is this tacit understanding at the BBC that not all of them will be Smiths and Jones and Evans and Davis. They will be people that aren't from England, so they will have international names.
Mr. Nahasabima Petalan.
Exactly. Yeah. I had a student called. Her surname was Igbobisioku, and she was from Ghana. And you kind of go, well, that's you study that and you work that out because it shows respect to the bit, and it's not like the people in the White House or who've got ordinary names.
Yeah, but the Jason Van Tantenhove, just in the introduction, Benny Thompson did it like 3 different ways, and I was kind of expecting Tantenhove to laugh or something he was, because it's a very serious situation. He's there to talk about violent political extremism, but he's having his name just mutilated multiple different ways. But no, he kept straight face.
Violence being enacted on his name.
So well done. But basically, he was the spokesperson for the Oath Keepers for a couple of years, before any of this stuff happened, and left well before January 6th. So I thought his testimony was interesting, but not extremely relevant to
it's
what was
a bit
going on.
Like when they. When something happens in the royal family and then they trot out Nicholas Witchell. Who go, Nicholas Witchell, you were the former royal correspondent. What do you know?
You reported on the royals 20 years ago.
That's right. What do you think it is? Tell us something about and you go, well, we haven't got a fucking clue. Let's just cut to somebody standing outside a building. Can you tell us any more than we know here? They go, no. Okay, thank you. We'll come back to the studio. So it was a bit like that.
I thought it was really valuable to get insight into the Oath Keepers as an organisation and Stuart Rhodes as a leader.
Yeah.
But he had nothing to say about what they did leading up to the 6th, what they did on the 6th. Any of that stuff.
And you're not going to get that.
No.
Because you get the nearest thing you can do, which is a reformed, what you want is Sonny Barger. You kind of get a reformed Hells Angel.
Yeah.
And you go, okay, tell us about the Hells Angels. And they go, well, this is their moral code. It doesn't work. Their moral compass, it just follows whoever's got the most magnets in their pockets. This is how they operate. This is the kind of thing they would be thinking. But it's in lieu of getting somebody who actually was there, but you know that the person that's actually there is still, they're wanted felons, so they're not going to turn up.
It felt a little disappointing for me, purely based on the fact that it's almost the last hearing. The next one is the kind of summing up of putting everything together. We're going to hear from another couple of low-level White House staffers. I think Sarah Matthews, Deputy Press Secretary, about the stuff that was going on January 6th itself. And we'll hear more from Pat Cipollone as well. But it felt like we're ramping up towards the end. He was kind of mostly really the last person they interviewed before we get to the conclusion. I would have preferred it if he had been earlier on in the process, and the acceleration that I felt there had been felt slightly slowed by his testimony. Not because he wasn't interesting or had no gravitas or anything like that. It's just it wasn't as relevant as a lot of the other stuff we've heard about, especially in a way after Cassidy Hutchinson kind of being a surprise, a surprise witness, each more surprising than the last.
Yes,
type situation on the last hearing.
Yeah, well, I guess that's the the kind of thing that you would work out in a test screening. You kind of go, oh yeah, it slows a bit in the third act. It's got a bit slow, so maybe we should trim that or move it further forward.
Otherwise, it's been very well written. It's very well produced, and it has told the narrative very convincingly and carefully, responsibly. And I'm looking forward to the one that is, in fact, just started like 10 minutes ago. Right. That we'll talk about next time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, can't wait. And finally, some things we really don't have time to talk about.
Okay, we're 105 episodes in now, and I feel like we've given our listeners a pretty good grounding in how to spot shitty arguments. But it's important to remember that not everyone's been listening from the beginning. Maybe this is even your first episode. If that's the case, welcome.
Hello.
And you specifically are forgiven if you somehow still believe that Republicans are actually pro-life. Don't worry, you'll figure it out. I mean, we could start with the fact that Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, a man who looks like he got cosmetic surgery from the woman who painted Monkey Jesus, is suing the Biden administration for the right to let more women die in treatable medical emergencies. There's not a lot Biden can do right now about Roe v. Wade being overturned, but one thing he has done is release updated guidance to doctors around the country about terminating pregnancies in order to save the life of the mother. The advice from the Department of Health and Human Services essentially just clarifies the Emergency Medical Treatment and Active Labour Act to make sure everyone understands that not only are doctors protected by federal law if they perform an abortion to save the mother's life, they're legally required to do so. This advice was sorely needed since healthcare providers in states where trigger laws outlawed abortion after the Dobbs decision came out have received mixed messages and have in some cases been justifiably too afraid to perform procedures. But Ken Paxton, who looks so much like a potato I'm shocked he's not the Attorney General of Idaho, has argued this violates the rights of doctors not to participate in terminating a pregnancy. When a healthcare provider takes federal funding, they must provide treatment to people in a medical emergency. So if a doctor doesn't want to do it, they have the right to go and work in IT instead, where this very rarely comes up.
On Tuesday, the House passed the Respect for Marriage Act, which would legally protect same-sex and interracial marriages even if the Supreme Court were to strike current constitutional protections down by a bipartisan 267 to 157 vote. As the Wall Street Journal noted, more than 90% of the Americans oppose interracial marriage bans, whilst more than 67% oppose same-sex marriage bans. And moreover, the Democrats were able to peel away 47 Republicans, a quarter of the GOP caucus, to vote for the act. Other Republican senators were more sceptical. Marco Rubio called the House bill a stupid waste of time. Tommy Tuberville of Alabama wouldn't commit either one way or the other on the bill, but when asked about whether he supports same-sex marriage, said, yeah, well, if that's what you want to do, fine. His response fell into the sure, maybe, whatever, is that even a thing category. Mike Braun of Indiana joined 4 or 5 others in Category 2 with, until I see the legislation, I'm not going to make a comment on whether I'll support it or not. Chuck Grassley of Iowa created the nothing like that should even be thought about by anybody because he's not endangered in any way category, despite Justice Clarence Thomas's saying that the court should reconsider rights like marriage equality that were based on the same reasoning as the struck-down Roe v. Wade. Lindsey Graham confused some people by declaring, I'll support the Defence of Marriage Act, which is defunct, instead of the new RFMA law. So, the exact opposite thing of what is being proposed. And of course, Marco Rubio played the old I'm not a ... some of my best friends are ... card with I know plenty of gay people in Florida that are pissed off about gas bills. And in a refreshingly dum-dum-tish kind of way, Republican Nancy Mace, who voted for the bill, quipped, if gay couples want to be as happily or miserably married as straight couples, more power to them. Trust me, I've tried it more than once. Just when we thought our right don't do funny theory was sealed shut, maybe, just maybe, a small amount of sunlight might be shining through in the House.
Multi-shirted former Trump advisor Steve Bannon, who looks like he just staggered into a Bedouin tent after being lost in the desert with no food or water for a week, is currently on trial for defying a congressional subpoena from the January 6th committee. This month hasn't gone well for him, starting with virtually all his pre-trial motions being denied, largely on the basis they were all bullshit. Among many other things, the judge didn't let him claim executive privilege, didn't allow him to call every single January 6th committee member and Nancy Pelosi to demand they explain their reasons for subpoenaing him, and didn't let him argue that defying the subpoena was not illegal, actually, because he was acting on the advice of his lawyers. Said lawyer, David Schoen, came so close to understanding reality when he exasperatedly asked the judge, "What's the point in going to trial here if there are no defences?" So close. Missed it by that much. The prosecution rested their case after 2 days, which is actually quite a long time since they only called 2 witnesses, one to testify that a subpoena had been issued and the other that Bannon hadn't showed up. The defence, meanwhile, rested today without presenting any evidence or witnesses at all. Closing arguments and jury instructions are scheduled tomorrow, followed by what I expect will be quite a short deliberation period.
No evidence or witnesses.
They just didn't have any.
What's the point of going to trial here? Yeah. Remember that Sacha Baron Cohen show, This Is America, and the sequence when a character he was playing demonstrated a handheld airport security-style so-called paedophile detector wand that beeped whenever it got near Alabama Supreme Court Chief Justice Roy Moore? Well, you'll also recall that Moore sued Baron Cohen in a $95 million defamation lawsuit. Yep, the right don't do funny. Well, hilariously, the last laughs on Moore because the Second U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in Manhattan upheld the lower court's ruling in favour of Baron Cohen, meaning Baron Cohen had won already and Moore appealed, and the appeal was then overturned on the basis that the 3 judges also found it was clearly comedy, which I suspect is court ruling speak for they laughed out loud, and that no viewer would think the comedian was making factual allegations against Moore. The ruling further stated Baron Cohen may have implied, despite his in-character disclaimers of any belief that Judge Moore was a paedophile, that he believed Judge Moore's accusers, but he did not imply the existence of any independent factual basis for that belief besides the obviously farcical paedophile detecting device which no reasonable person could believe to be an actual functioning piece of technology. Whilst the appeal court had noted that it was indeed a ruse that Moore got to appear on the show, they also noted that Moore signed a binding release waiving all legal claims. In an all too familiar response, no reasonable person Moore texted a statement to the Associated Press. For far too long, the American people have been subjected to the antics of Sacha Baron Cohen. His pusillanimous and fraudulent conduct must be stopped. We will appeal. Yeah, good luck, Roy. Because let me tell you, you don't appeal to no one. Ha ha.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Roy Moore does not understand the word pusillanimous.
No, because it's such a great word to use.
It's a great word.
Yeah, but it's very English.
Well,
British English word.
It means lacking courage, which...
Yeah.
For anything you can say about Sacha Baron Cohen, he's got some fucking balls on him.
Yeah, exactly. He does not lack courage. Yeah. And what is it, fraudulent? Because it was totally open.
It was fraudulent. He was literally pretending to be an Israeli defence contractor called
That's
Erin
true.
Morad.
Yeah, exactly. But they did say, here's the waiver you can sign to do that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I would recommend any filmmaker of any stripe, documentary or anything, if you can ever get a look at the releases that Sacha Baron Cohen uses, they are clearly the best in the world. Because he's been sued a number of times and always wins based on the fact that people signed this release. And therefore he can just do whatever the fuck he wants with it.
With the footage. Yeah. Yes.
And if you can find it, show me what it is.
Send it to
us.
We want it. Send it to us. We need that. Not for any.
Not
nefarious, fraudulent, pusillanimous.
Just in case.
Just in case. We just want to look at the thing.
You never know when you might get sued.
In the Ruttles series of songs, Neil Innes wrote a song which was a Paul McCartney pastiche, and of kind of Martha, My Dear, and that kind of, sort of jaunty English type of music. And he rhymes, You're so pusillanimous, oh dear. Nature's calling and I must go there. It's so good. So, yeah, that's the only time I've heard it in a song. And it's the kind of thing Neil excels at.
As we may have mentioned once or twice before, Trump lost over 60 court cases following the 2020 election, and while he's been a loser for a very long time, these losses, be they in court, in business or just in life, were spread out over many years, so it must have been quite exhilarating to lose so much in such a short time. It seems like maybe Trump misses just feeling something and is now going out of his way to find fights he can lose. His latest was with the Pulitzer Prize Board and, by proxy, the New York Times and the Washington Post. Both of those esteemed publications won National Reporting Pulitzers in 2018 for their reports on the Trump administration's links to Russia and the subsequent investigation. Trump demanded the board revoke those awards, based largely on the fact that he keeps saying it was all a hoax, so... yeah, no, that's it, actually. The Pulitzer Board must have been having a quiet one, so they commissioned 2 separate reviews from individuals with no connection to either paper. Their report, released this week, said, quote, "The separate reviews converged in their conclusions that no passages or headlines, contentions or assertions in any of the winning submissions were discredited by facts that emerged subsequent to the conferral of the prizes." Knowing that this wouldn't satisfy his need for a fix of those sweet, sweet court losses, Trump already promised earlier this year that if the Pulitzer Board didn't do the right thing on their own, he would file a lawsuit. Don't worry, Trump, there'll be plenty more losses to come for you. We won't let you down.
Car and Driver magazine reports that Ben Moss, incoming State House representative in North Carolina's District 52, is running on the Get Mad electricity ticket. He's proposing in House Bill 1049 tearing out the public electric vehicle charging points unless gas and diesel pumps are installed next to them. Because let's face it, EVs are a menace to health and jobs and locally US-produced electricity and everything. Never mind that VinFast is building a 2,000-acre factory just up the road and will employ 7,500 people, and Toyota is building a battery factory outside Greensboro that will employ 1,750 people. But let's remember that House Bill 1049 will also create a job for the person who goes round and rips out the free public chargers. Until that's done, which will probably be the better part of a week, he's not just after the public ones. He's determined to have private businesses like restaurants who have an EV charger in the parking lot detail in the bill for all patrons what proportion of the bill goes to subsidising the charger. It's a bit like asking, why am I paying taxes for street lamps when I don't have one outside my house? Or why are there libraries I can't read? And school, who needs them? I'm not a kid. Still, that's the American way as far as Moss sees it, fomenting the suspicion in the voting population that someone might just be getting something out of this, like, say, a job higher up in the GOP. Hey, Ben?
I once heard tell of a thing called good news. I'm not personally convinced it's real, but as a good sceptic, I'll keep an open mind. The strongest evidence I've seen for a while is a story in Axios about the gap in fundraising results between GOP and Democratic Senate candidates in this midterm cycle. For example, in Arizona, the leading Republican candidate, Blake Masters, raised just $827,000 in the last 3 months, compared to $13.6 million for Senator Mark Kelly, the Democratic incumbent. In New Hampshire, Democratic Senator Maggie Hassan raised $5.07 million compared to just $538,000 for her leading GOP challenger, State Senate President Chuck Morse. Meanwhile, in Pennsylvania, Dr. Oz raised $1.6 million against Democrat John Fetterman's $10 million. And Fetterman doesn't even need all that money, since he keeps going viral for trolling Oz in fun and creative ways. For just $393.75, Fetterman got Jersey Shore's Snooki to make a cameo video for Oz, telling him she doesn't know why he would ever want to leave New Jersey just for a job, but not to worry because it's just temporary and he'll be back in Jersey soon. Despite the fact that Snooki clearly has no clue who Dr. Oz is, Oz fought back, kind of, by claiming on a radio talk show, "She's been on my show, I know all these celebrities, I could actually have celebrities do my campaign for me," which simultaneously proved that he'd completely missed the point of the video and made me wonder which celebrities he could get given his rapidly dwindling campaign funds. I hear Kevin Sorbo's got a lot of time on his hands, and he's only $80 on Cameo.
Very Trump thing to say, is it? I know all these celebrities. They've been on my show. Yeah,
If I wanted, I could get them to do my campaign.
Anyway, yeah.
I don't want them to.
I just don't want to. No.
I know lots of famous people.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Who are they? Well, not allowed to tell you. Yeah. They wouldn't want me to.
They're from Canada. You wouldn't know them.
Yeah. In the car crash, dumpster fire, cat fight, all-in wrestling debacle that is British politics this week, we have seen the same lawmakers who all demanded honesty, integrity and transparency when resigning en masse to get rid of Boris Johnson resort to all the usual duplicitous, opaque tribe mentality in selecting, supporting, then character assassinating the nominees to be the next leader and Prime Minister. From 9 candidates, including 1 or 2 complete unknowns, insofar as they weren't tainted by ever having worked in Boris's cabinet, and would therefore provide the clean start several lawmakers said the party needed in their resignation letters, we're now down to 2. Rishi Sunak, the former Chancellor who started the whole headlong resignation rush, and the right-wing Boris continuation candidate Liz Truss. Truss, to not put too fine a point on it, is utterly shit. She is Trump to Boris's W. She is merely there so the right-wing Brexiteer puppet masters who manipulated unwitting idiot narcissist Boris into believing he was in charge can continue to be in charge. Truss is equally unwitting and idiotic, the perfect Boris continuation candidate. And she also really believes she is very good and there on her own merits. She's not, and she isn't. What I am looking forward to is the absolute laugh fest that Prime Minister's questions will be if she gets to be Prime Minister. I'm not looking forward to the continuing wreck she'll make of the UK. God, we thought May was wooden. Truss gives your eyes splinters just looking at her. You might say it's not a coincidence that I'm recording my bit in France for the next 3 or so episodes. You might be right.
Honestly, just the fact that Truss believes she is capable of being Prime Minister is enough to prove she isn't. I mean, it's with Boris, you can kind of understand why he would be arrogant enough to think it, because yeah, he's well educated and people have been telling him he's great his whole life.
Yeah.
And or at least enough people that he can drown out the people who tell him he's an idiot.
Yeah.
Surely no one's been telling Liz Truss she's great her whole life.
No.
There can't have been more than a handful of people who've ever said anything nice about her.
No.
So
one of those is her mum, who then changed her mind.
So what could possibly have given her the idea that she's capable of something like this? It's insane.
I'll tell you what. I'll give 3 reasons: Jacob, Rees, and Mogg. That's it. They've just gone. Okay, we need an unwitting, narcissistic idiot to take the place of the previous unwitting, narcissistic idiot to carry out the right-wing donors and also protect my offshore interests from the European Union laws about closing loopholes for offshore interests. That's exactly what it's
still,
for.
Has she not seen the speech she gave about cheese and pork markets?
Exactly. No. Nor has she seen Michael Spicer's Man Next Door version of that either, which is just brilliant.
It's genius.
Yeah.
So that's all the bad arguments and faulty reasoning we have time for this week. You'll find the show notes at fallaciousTrump.com. And if you hear Trump say something stupid and want to ask if it's a fallacy, our contact details are on the contact page.
If you think we use fallacy ourselves, let us know. And if you had a good time, please give us a review on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you get podcasts. Or simply tell one other person in person about how much they'd like our podcast. And you can support the show at patreon.com/ftrump, just like our strawman level patrons Steve Bickle, Schmutz, Mark Reiki and Amber R. Buchanan, and our true Scotsman level patrons Kaz Tui, Andrew Houck, Max Beaver, and our top patron Lauren. Thank you so much, everyone. Your support is very much appreciated.
You can connect with those awesome people as well as us and other listeners in the Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/Fallacious Trump.
All music is by The Outbursts and was used with permission. So until next time on Fallacious Trump, we'll leave the last word to the Donald.
That's right. Go home to mommy. Bye. Bye.